In today's episode, Chef Erica will show us how to make her delicious Moroccan Chilean sea bass tagine using Prairie Street Prime's Chilean sea bass.
It just flakes apart so nicely. So good. It's velvety. It's such a great fish. Welcome to the Prairie Street Prime Culinary Kitchen. I'm Chef Erica, and I'm really excited to be back here today because we are now presenting fish to you as part of your luxury kosher experience. Today, what we're working with is our Chilean sea bass. So Chilean sea bass is a great fish because it's thick and it's meaty. It's this snowy white fish, which if you looked at it, you'd think, oh, it's a white fish, it could be dry. Interestingly, it's not. It's got a high oil content, so it holds up really well in the pan. That oil content is important because it prevents your fish from drying out. And it's a fish that could be just salt, pepper on the grill, or it's a fish that can go into a recipe that has lots of complexity to it, and it stands up to both of them. So it's a really good one to work with. So what I'm gonna do today is a Moroccan Chilean sea bass tagine. So a tagine is a dish from Morocco, obviously, that is sort of a stew. It's a dish that is traditionally made with lamb or with chicken, or you could do a veg tagine, but there are fish tagines also. Now, sometimes you'll actually see like a cooking vessel called a tagine. It's sort of a cone-shaped ceramic dish, and those are beautiful. They're great to have, but you don't need one. You can do this on the stovetop in a big saute pan. You could do it in a Dutch oven. You could do it in an oven-proof baking dish. Start it on the stovetop, finished it in the oven. It's a very versatile dish. You can do it either way. I'm gonna do the whole thing on the stovetop today. It's also a dish you can make with any of your favorite thicker fish fillets. So you could get salmon from us and you could use that. You could get tuna from us and you could use that. So let's begin our new fish journey. So first thing I'm going to do before I go to the stove is get my fish seasoned. I'm gonna rub the fish down with some of that seasoning. So my kosher salt, just a nice sprinkle there. And I have a lot going on in this dish, so I'm not gonna go crazy with the salt and pepper here because I want those other seasonings to really stand out. So just light on that, and I can do just one side. I'm gonna do some of my ground coriander and some of my turmeric. Be careful with the turmeric, it turns your fingers yellow. Some ground cumin, and my favorite smoked paprika. And I'm just gonna rub that all in, just rub it onto the surface, just like that. And get both sides of the fish. And you could let the fish sit for a few minutes like this with the spices on it if you wanted to do this a little bit in advance. That's fine. It'll soak in, it'll marinate your fish. So just like almost like a spice rub on there. All right, now we're at the stove. Let's get this tagine going. See the kind of pot that I'm using? This is great. A nice heavy pot, not too deep. Straight sides. If you have something like this, great. So I've got my pan hot. I'm adding some good olive oil to the pan, and I'm going to add onions. These are thinly sliced onions. We're gonna start sauteing those onions. We wanna get them nice and soft. When you cook onions and garlic together, or in this case, onions, ginger, and garlic together, always start your onions first. Because if I threw in chopped garlic and chopped ginger in here now, they could burn because they don't take as long to cook as the onions. So always get your onions going first. Also, try to resist the urge to stir things too much. Everybody feels like they have to stand at the stove and stir things constantly, but you know, stirring just slows down your cooking process because when you stir, it's almost like a fan. You're cooling things down. So once I have those onions spread out, I'm just gonna hang out and watch them cook for a little bit. They'll take care of themselves. I am, however, gonna put a little bit of salt on my onions because that will help to start pulling moisture out. It'll draw water out of my onions. Okay, so now my onions are looking good. They're starting to really soften up. They're really collapsing, they're wilting, they're sweating. Now I'm gonna add my garlic and my ginger. So this is about 3 cloves of garlic that I sliced up. You can mince it, chop it, slice it, it's all good. And some fresh ginger, good amount of fresh ginger in there. You wanna really taste that. So we got our ginger, and now we give that a stir. You'll know when the ginger and the garlic are really starting to cook because you'll smell them. These sorts of foods, they communicate with you, right? You can hear them, but they also start to smell. You can smell them. This is starting to smell good. Oh yeah, that smells great. One of life's great aromas, onions, ginger, and garlic cooking all together. And so many of the world's great cuisines start out with these three, the trifecta of flavor. I'm gonna push them off to the side, just like that. I'm going to add a drop more olive oil to this, maybe like another tablespoon. And then I'm going to lay my fish in there. And I'm just gonna brown the fish up a little bit on each side. These are petite pieces of fish. We don't wanna overcook them. We wanna be really careful, but I wanna get just a little bit of a crusting on those spices, just a minute or two on each side in there. Now I'm just gonna flip these over. See, we just got a little bit of browning on that spice. We're like toasting up the spices, basically. So just, and careful, because fish is fragile, so be careful with it. Treat it delicately. Giving those onions a little stir around the edges. And then I'm actually gonna just remove the fish back to this platter. And it's okay, it's gonna get cooked again, so don't worry that there was uncooked fish on there. I'm gonna pull this out now. It's okay if you pick up a few onions with it. They'll all get back in the pan all together, just like that. And now I'm gonna throw in my zucchini. And I wanna let my zucchini really start to cook down a little bit. So I'm gonna let the zucchini cook for a couple of minutes. Just spread it out. Then we'll add our tomatoes, we'll add our fish, and we'll let the whole thing cook till it's done. Not gonna take long on this fish. These are not very thick, they're about an inch. So it's gonna take maybe 6-7 minutes tops. On that fish, if we're using a thermometer, we're gonna look for an internal temp of about 135 Fahrenheit. That's a good temperature for white fish like this. All proteins experience this phenomenon called carryover cooking, which means that even if I take something off a heat source, it continues to cook. We've talked about this before in other videos when we talk about cooking meat. There's a carryover period. The temperature goes up. Fish does it too. And with fish, because it's such a fine line between perfect and overcooked, I'm actually gonna pull this fish out at 130, and we'll take its temp and we'll see where it's at, because it's gonna jump up a little bit also. So now we're getting nice caramelization in here on those onions, and our zucchini is looking really good. So now I'm gonna add the tomatoes. And the tomatoes are deglazing my pan. They're picking up any caramelization, any of that fond that's stuck to the bottom of the pan. And that's good, because that's all flavor. We want that. This is also why I never cook with non-stick pans. Because with non-stick pans, there's no fond. So you don't get the same kind of flavor development. So there's my tomato. I'm letting that tomato cook down a bit in here. I want to let it kind of fall apart a little bit. Spreading that out. Let that zucchini cook down a little bit more. Now I'm going to put my fish back in. So I'm going to just lay my little fillets in there. And I'm just kind of nestling them down into the pan. And now we want to lower our heat. We want to cook this very gently. So I'm going to take this down to low. So I have this on low now. And I'm going to add just a splash of stock. As I said earlier, this is veg stock. You could use water if you don't have veg stock. You could use fish stock. Maybe you made some fish stock. Just enough to give us a little bit of liquid. I'm going up like about halfway up the sides of the fish. Now I'm going to just make sure the fish is happily nestled in there. I'm going to put the lid on this slightly open like that so it doesn't get too hot in there. And I'm only going to give it about 2 or 3 more minutes. Then I'm going to take the temperature on that fish because I want to be really careful about it. Okay, so just going to check my temperature here on my fish. And remember I said I'm going to pull it at about 130 because we want it to be at 135 when it's done. Yeah, perfect. 130. So there we go. Now I've turned off the heat because there is that carryover cooking. Now I add my olives. I like to add the olives at the end so they stay really briny and fresh and bright. And I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of fresh lemon juice right over the top, and I just use my fingers like a little strainer in case I get any pits in there. And then the last thing, one of my favorite ingredients, a little chopped cilantro. If you're not a fan, you could use mint, you could use parsley. Fresh cilantro on top, and I'm gonna serve this just with some plain steamed couscous, or you could serve it over rice. You could serve it just with crusty bread in a bowl and sop up all that delicious broth. Any way you want to do it. And actually, this is a dish that's also really good cold. So if you have leftovers to chill it down, you can just eat it cold the next day, which is how I sometimes do it. Well, let's give this a try. So I just have some simple steamed couscous in the bowl here. I like to pair this with something really light and simple because this is so interesting and complex. So let's get a nice piece of our beautiful Chilean sea bass and put it right on top of that couscous, and then of course get all of the delicious zucchini and tomatoes and the herbs and the olives and just everything that goes with this. Very excited about this one. I think I say that in every video that I do. I'm very excited about this one, but I just get really excited about food in general, and especially when I'm working with ingredients that are this incredible. Okay, and that looks just beautiful. I would be proud to serve that at any holiday dinner party, even a quick weeknight dinner. I mean, you saw how fast this one was to make. You could definitely whip this up on any random weeknight. And how incredible would this be to serve for a beautiful Shabbat dinner? I mean, people would be talking. This would be an amazing thing to serve to friends, family, guests. Incredible. Shabbat dinner, a holiday dinner would be so nice. All right, let's see how it tastes. And you can see with this fish, it just flakes apart so nicely, but it's not dry. Because like I said, it's a fish that's high in oil, so it really holds its integrity. Even though it's flaking apart, that doesn't mean that it's dry or overcooked. It's so good. It's velvety. It's such a great fish. I haven't had this fish in a long time, and it's really fun to eat it again. And that sauce with the couscous. So good. I don't know what everyone else is eating for lunch, but this is what I'm having today for lunch. So I hope you'll join us again here in the Prairie Street Prime Culinary Kitchen, and that you'll check out our new fish offerings on our website. Because remember that Prairie Street Prime, we are bringing you your luxury kosher experience. We're not just meat anymore. Now we're meat and fish. So if you liked what I did here today, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, follow, share. You know what to do. Also, please leave us comments because we would love to hear what you think. We want your feedback. We want to hear what you want us to do. What can we teach you from the Culinary Kitchen? How can we help you make better, more delicious kosher meals? So we'll see you again. Thanks so much, and enjoy your new fish recipe.
Subscribe to our channel now and set your notifications so you don't miss our latest recipes and chef-led tutorials. Then head over to prairiestreetprime.com to shop for your next big meal.